To understand feminist art, I feel like we need to go back in time just a little bit. And it's like, I'm so excited by this, but one of the things that's really solidified for me being in school is understanding the difference between modern and postmodern. And every single class I have, we have to talk about it. It's getting kind of old because I know it now. And this was a question that even I would ask my teachers in undergrad, and the answers I got were never sufficient for me. I was like, I still don't get it. So to define contemporary art, contemporary means that it's happening now. The artists are generally alive or like within the last 50 years. Maybe less than that. I don't know. There's not a cemented definition, but contemporary means pretty close to now. Modern is a broader definition because some art historians will say our modern era started back when the Greeks moved into Italy and kicked off the Renaissance. So I'm not going to take you guys all the way back there. I don't have the time, but it would be fun. So I'm just going to go back to 1850-ish. Okay, so at that time, Europe was the center. It was Paris and it was London. That was like it. I mean, Germany had some stuff going on, Russia, but these are the big places. It was all about the academy. If you couldn't get into the academy, you are not being a real artist. It's just not happening. And women were not allowed into the academies for most of history. And so there were very strict rules, there were very strict guidelines, there were visual expectations that you couldn't go outside the bounds. And you would just be ostracized because every year there were these big salon exhibitions where, I don't know if you've seen pictures, where you go into this huge ballroom and it's floor to ceiling paintings. And as an artist, you're hoping that you have an eye level piece, but getting into the salon is major, and that's going to get you attention. Or you have someone that is sponsoring your work, but that's kind of what being a working artist would have looked like. And that really, I think, kept things going. And as the Industrial Revolution was happening, things started going off the rails, I think. Like, I always go back to, it's the Industrial Revolution. That's when everything changed, because things started moving really quickly. And the oranges painting is based off an arts and crafts pattern, and arts and crafts started because people were scrambling for more hands-on artwork to bring back into their life when everything was being mass-produced. So art started becoming more democratic as people took on their own art education or branching outside of the academy. People being bold enough to say, we're going to do it our own way. We're going to have our own show. The Impressionists put together their own thing. And they're like, they might not let us into the salon, but we are still going to show our stuff because we have these new ideas. It also was made possible because of technology in paints and pigments and the way that supplies were able to be portable at that time. Okay, and so that's 1860s. And then as we get into the 1900s, it gets really exciting. As we approach World War I, we're still having all of these innovations. People, the Expressionists, Impressionists came first, excuse me. Those get confused. So I think it's really interesting the way that the world wars impact the art world, and I had not thought about it before recently. So World War I starts this exodus of really talented artists in these cities having to move out because they're being persecuted. A lot of them come to the United States. The United States was not an art center at that time. There were people making art, but it wasn't anything that was all that important in the broad scheme of things. And so there weren't rules here in the United States. Anything can go. And so from my observations, the European artists that moved to the United States innovated things. They found a freedom, and things started taking off. We started having these art academies or art departments that were part of colleges that were new and doing things in a new way. And so that's really interesting. World War I wraps up. We go into Great Depression, after the 20s. The Great Depression art of the United States that you're familiar with, probably Dorothea Lange's photography, the WPA projects that were murals, all the art in the old post offices. It was really cool how the government funded art projects, and that really kept artists going, and it was really good for morale. But the rest of the world continued to make incredibly innovative art, and that's one of my favorite discoveries, is that the 1930s were incredible, especially for women artists. There was a lot happening. So then we get into World War II. I'm taking you guys really quickly. World War II, even more artists are forced to leave Europe and come here. We are so lucky because there are programs that are starting that just really, they changed the course of history for art. I'm thinking like Black Mountain College, it's North or South Carolina, I don't know. I can't remember all the details. But that's like one of the ones where all of this innovation comes from in modern art. And it was all because of artists that came from the Bauhaus in Germany are coming over and influencing art and design. After World War II, we have all of these GIs come home and are given the opportunity to go to college on the GI Bill. There are thousands of veterans that would have gone back to work on the farm that are getting a college education instead. Oh, it makes me emotional because it's so cool. The way that new opportunities are opened up because of that program. And it's hard not to think about it in light of what's going on right now. So I wasn't prepared to cry. I'm not going to cry. It's so exciting. So what happened is that you've got all of these men, mostly men, coming to college in the late 40s and 50s. And the art departments previously didn't exist. They start being built at all the universities, built off of some of there was one in upstate New York. There was these examples that all the universities started establishing art departments. And the art classes were like electives you could take instead of taking something like poli-sci or whatever. You can take ceramics. And then you have all of these people who have never been in art before, probably never been to a museum, are participating in making art. And they're all bringing brand new ideas. And this is when we see a huge shift. And I wasn't aware of that until I took the history of studio ceramics, because the shift is so incredible. These men come into class, and it's all men, really. It's ridiculous. Someday I'm going to write an art history course that's only women. I'm sure they exist, but some of them, we've paid attention mostly to the men. They come in and they have the audacity to make pottery that doesn't actually do anything. And this, we've moved away from the rules of the academy, but to make pottery that doesn't do anything, it was just we can't even believe it. So what's happening is art is becoming for everybody. People are going out on a limb and saying, well, this funky thing, do you think that's art? Is it? I don't know. Let's discuss it. Philosophy, all these ideas, people are really opening up. And of course, then we've got counterculture comes in, and culture in general is changing. I think the most important part is the idea of democratization of art. We have come a long way since the salons, and now everybody has a say. And everyone can make art about their own experience. So everyone then gets to make art about their own experience. And this, I mean, it's such a United States thing, I think, that we have. You know, the Europeans are like, oh my gosh. And yeah, we're really taking it into a real funky place. There's even like funk ceramics was a movement. And it's gnarly, you should Google it. What's really cool is that at that time we see all of these political movements. So we've got the workers' rights activism happening, we have the Chicano movement, we have the feminist movement. And all of these people who have been going through these art departments realize that they can use their art skills to apply towards their activism. So then you have art that represents these movements and these ideas, which, I mean, it didn't exist before. We had posters for shows, but there were women doing incredible work. And the feminism that we see in the 60s and 70s was officially the second wave of feminism. First wave of feminism focuses on voting rights, like the women's suffrage. And the next wave of feminism is going to be fighting for more equality. And it's still going on. We're still aiming for more equality. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more. But all of those movements have ties to the Central Valley. It's all up and down California. It's all part of California's history. So I feel like it's really cool to understand the ways that we are connected to those roots. And so the feminist art program, the very first one in the United States, was started at Fresno State. It was Fresno State College at the time, by an artist named Judy Chicago. And it was 1970. She had this idea. She proposed, it's going to be an all-female class, and we are going to meet off campus, so we have no male influence whatsoever. And there were 15 initial participants, and I don't know, Fresno State went for it. They could only handle her for 1 year. So they worked at Fresno State for 1 year, and then they ended up moving the program down to Cal Arts in Valencia, and it continued on. Nancy Youdelman was one of the original participants in Fresno. And some of the intentions of the program I wrote down from a book that Faith Wilding wrote in 1977, kind of just getting the history down of this program. Faith Wilding was one of the participants as well. The intentions were building female context and environment. So they worked off campus with no male gaze. There was no fear that like a man was going to see you doing what you were doing, and there's a certain freedom in that. Female role models. So there was only female teachers, and the art historians that they studied female artists. And then they had the freedom to be authentic and to use their own experiences. From what I've read, all the participants said Judy Chicago was all about pushing it as far as you could go. So if you Google some of the art from that movement, it's, I don't know how to describe it. It's really, really bold. And there's, you know, maybe some bad words used and things that would make you really uncomfortable. There's ways that women were confronting just gender identity. And they were, I want to make sure I cover everything. The way that they used their body in art was brand new. And we see a lot of performance art, and people, there are things that I don't want to get into because it's bold. But they were exploring hypotheses about the women's experience. And I also wanted to include a definition because I read the term consciousness raising, and I actually didn't know what that meant. Like, we have this idea like of consciousness raising, what does that even look like? but they were doing it intentionally. So we have a group that gathers, and we're talking about our individual experiences, and then that opens up our understanding of what life is like for other people. And for me, that is, I think, essential for getting along. The United States is so diverse that the only way we're going to continue on is if we hear from other people that are experiencing the world in a different way, and letting that expand our mind and our empathy and our love for each other. So that's one of my favorite things. And I find that, especially in the coven, we do that naturally. We do that in our circles of friends. And that's why you love your friends, because you see the world through them. We're not the same, but we're able to foster that love. So I'm going to read a quote from Faith Wilding from that book. She says, "Since the program was first of its kind anywhere in the country, the women felt a special sense of risk and importance and a freedom from history, which made them adventurous in their experimentation." And I really do think they broke things open for future female artists to be bold, to use their bodies and their own personal experiences. The project that the group worked on in the 1971-1972 school year was called Woman House, and it was down in LA. They found a Victorian home that was scheduled to be demolished, and they took it over, refurbished it in a way so that they could use it for performance art. Every room, every space, the staircase, the bathroom, all of it was an experience that you could visit. And it ran for a full month, and on Friday and Saturday nights they had performances. Nancy and her classmate took on, it was called Leah's Room. It was a bedroom, and the actor would sit at the vanity and applied her makeup, and then took it all off, and then repeated. And it was like so overkill. But the point was that we are in this unwinnable fight against time as our beauty fades, and we are trying to chase this thing that we can never achieve when we don't have eternal youth. And that was the point of that room. And each time that the women were participating in putting on a character, which they did throughout all their projects, they would take a lot of photography in costumes, and they were playing out these female roles in a way that they could embody them and say, do I identify with this thing that society says is female? And what they found is that none of them had the same experience. Everyone, and I think this is the thing that is universal, is that all of us experience life so differently that what it means to be female to me is completely different to what it means to be female like the rest of you. And I just think that's very amazing that they're taking this idea that, is there a universal female experience? Because at that time, that's what they were saying. They're like, we're women, we're all this. And they wanted to test that hypothesis. Are we all the same? And, is it a male and female binary? And to be able to say, like, no, like, I don't like that. I can wear a dress one day because I feel like it, but then another day I'm going to dress in sneakers. Like, women can have the freedom to be the way that they want to be because of the way that they've experienced life and how they want to represent themselves. And that, it feels so normal now. Like, we have no problem with that. Of course, you can wear whatever you want. But back then, it was still revolutionary. And the progress that we've made is because of artists like this confronting those ideas. So the term for that is essentialism. When you're saying, oh, it's a universal experience, that is one of the main ideas that the feminist artists have disproven. And so that connects to my underwear drawer project. You do have my artist statement there that tells the story about how I came up with this idea because I opened my drawer and I just felt this wave of guilt for having purchased things that I never wear. And I'm like, I wasted all this money because I thought that having those would make me feel a certain way, or that would be great to wear for date night. And it's like, I'm not ever going to do that. And then I was realizing that I don't think my underwear drawer should make me feel guilty. Like, I don't have time for that. And then I was thinking, well, do other women have experiences like that? Is that universal? Do we think about the ways that we've wasted our time and money on buying things that are, yeah, men do too. Okay, good. Perfect. See, there's no universal experience. And what's really cool is that, like, there's a piece that is in the permanent collection that Nancy did at the SF MoMA, I believe, and it's called I Tried Everything. And she and her group ordered from, like, the mail order catalogs or the back of the magazine, all of the things that they were selling women to increase their bust, and then taking photographic evidence. And so the exhibit is a series of photographs of Nancy, and then the display of all the things she tried. And she's so brave, like, so cool. And so what I discovered is I proved that hypothesis again. There's no universal experience. Because I'm like, does everyone hide their kids' baby teeth in their underwear drawer? Like, does everyone have, like, those things in the back that they never wear? Is anyone still Marie Kondoing their underwear? Like, I know I am. That's the only area in my life that's still Marie Kondoed. But I have, all of these are sent in from friends, mostly coven members and family members. And, I've got some that are total chaos. And I thought, how am I going to paint that? And it turned out to be really fun. And these drawers don't represent the women that sent them in. And even talking last night, I was talking to one of the people that was in attendance, and they said, oh yeah, my drawer means nothing to me. Yeah, okay, great. We're different. Wonderful. And I love that about us. So that's the drawer hypothesis and what I learned in that process. I was lucky to have learned about Nancy in some of my classes. I came back to school as an older student in the fall of 2020 when everything went online. I had never taken a painting class up till then. I was originally an art major when I was younger, but had a lot of trouble being able to take the vision that I had for myself, wanting to be a successful artist, versus like how to get there. And I was involved heavily in church, and I wanted to serve as much as I could, and it didn't align with these lofty goals that I had. So I ended up quitting school and got married. My husband and I have been married almost 20 years in May. Wave. And yay. We have 3 kids. My oldest is back there. He's 13. I have a 12-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old daughter who has Down syndrome and keeps things extra fun. And so I came back to school. I had a great time. I got really, really lucky because, there's so many different beginning painting classes that you can take. So I just pulled up Fresno City College and picked one. And I ended up with Kevin Stewart McGee, who him and I have a really great matching energy. We take painting very seriously. And so we had a great time and are still friends. So and I'm sad. I learned about Nancy as we would talk about feminist art. And the reason that he would talk about the feminist artist was because what I was doing was feminist. And I didn't know that. I was still kind of in the zone of like, well, feminism is kind of like negative. Like, I felt like I don't hate men and I don't want to be militant in any way. And I don't want to make any waves. So I can't align myself with that word. And as I learned more about it, I realized that what I'm doing totally fits the tenets of feminist art. I first met Nancy when she was finishing up these hanging sculptures. And I was so delighted because I had painted the mixing bowl painting and the shooting star painting and realized I'm like, she's saying the same thing as me. And wouldn't it be cool someday if we got to show our work together? My pieces are more about how I felt really restrained. This is called A Wish Restrained, and I wanted to communicate that frustration that I felt, like having a dream and not knowing how to make it happen. I felt really just restricted in what was possible. Part of that was my own doing, so I take responsibility for that. And then the other one is I wanted to symbolize what it felt like having really young children, making plans, and then pretty much never executing those plans, because young kids, I mean, you're in survival mode every single day. And I found that to be really frustrating. I had a really hard time making peace with my identity as a mom when my kids were really little. And through making all of these paintings, I've kind of played with a lot of my frustration and feeling like, you know, my mental health was really challenged. And in the back, the bunnies are all about living in a small town. I'm not a small town girl, and I tried my best for 12 years, and I felt really, really held back. And so I wanted to represent those things in my art. And then when I see Nancy's sculpture, it's all very feminine, as like the standard, you know, all of this jewelry, but it's bound and it's so contained. For her inspiration and intent is to honor the women that have come before, who have paved the way. All of this jewelry once belonged to a woman and was worn and cherished. And so it's not just things that she bought, you know, ordered from Amazon. And I love that about her work, that you can take it at its face value, but understanding the deeper meaning, it just adds a whole other element to it. And I'm so grateful that when I graduated from Fresno State, which was a surprise to me, I wasn't planning on finishing my degree. I was just going to take painting for fun, and I couldn't stop. I loved it. And when I graduated, I did another studio visit with Nancy. I pulled up on my computer these images and said, I think that our work might be related, and would it be possible maybe someday for us to show together? And also Arts Visalia is taking proposals right now. And she was like, yeah, write the proposal. And yay, we're here. So that's really cool. It's also a lesson that, like, if there's someone you admire, they're just a human being. So like, you can talk to them, it's okay. And that's how we help each other to make progress. Background, I'm a Central Valley native, born and raised in Modesto. Fresno feels like just Modesto, but twice. And like, so we live in Fresno now. It feels like home. I'm really happy to be there and to be part of that art scene. I grew up, I already touched on, like, I served in the church for many, many years, and lots and lots and lots of dedicated hours there. And I think that there was a little bit of a heartbreak. You know, I did say, you know, this restrained wish, feeling like there was only one path forward, because I wanted to please the people around me. I wanted to please my pastor. I wanted to be, you know, what the church wanted me to be. And it took me so many years to realize, like, that's not it. Like, we've all been created really differently with different talents, and it's okay to branch out and to expand. And so I'm so grateful that I was able to go back to school, learn a ton, and then be able to, I feel, really flourish in painting. Because once I painted, like, my literally first black and white acrylic painting, I was like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Okay, got it. I'm like, that's pretty good, I think. So it's been a really, really just a joyful journey to be able to process all of the things. It's been better than therapy to be able to meditate on all these things. Even painting my friends' drawers was like, I love them so much, and I love the people, and I love that they're allowing me to have this intimate connection with them. It's so profound. I wanted to dig into the nostalgia that, I mean, I feel like a lot of us have these nostalgic memories, especially around the toys that we grew up with. Nancy will involve a lot of like ceramic doll pieces. So if you get to see some of her latest work, like she's got a lot of ceramic doll heads and things in it. And so she's nodding to that nostalgia for her childhood. And then I was like, how does that reflect for me? So I've painted my 1986 Cabbage Patch doll there. And this one is a reflection of the short story, The Yellow Wallpaper, which is a story about a woman with postpartum depression sliding into a deeper psychosis. And I, fortunately didn't have that severe experience, but, you still have to process that change from, coming into motherhood, and it can be really difficult. So there's that. I've got my kindergarten lunchbox in that one. I've got my Kermit the Frog reporter. The 1998 holiday Barbie, I never had any of the expensive Barbies as a kid. I would not have dared ask for one. But, and also because there was like this expectation you're supposed to leave them in the box. That's crazy. I knew I couldn't, so I'm like, I'm not going to even ask. But this one I got on eBay for $19, which is cheaper than it was sold for at Toys R Us originally. So Calico Critters, I never had those as a kid, but I always really wanted them. So that really like fed my inner child to be able to order those. The Coven is also showing. If you haven't seen the Coven's collective work, you've got to check it out. This series surprised even me, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Abnormal Coven. And I'd like to tell you really quickly the story of how it came about. And my hope is that this model is going to be contagious. Like, we're going to continue to grow. We're always welcoming more Fresno female artists, but it's better when it's smaller. We started out with 8 people because when I graduated from Fresno State, I knew that I didn't want to do this alone. I have ideas and I'm going to like blaze this trail forward, but I don't want to do it alone because I really value the opinions of my fellow artists. I really need feedback. I need someone to tell me I'm being crazy or a perfectionist or like, drop it, you're fine. And so I collected my friends that I had made along the way and had a monthly artist salon at my house. And we lived still in Kingsburg, so all my Fresno friends would come down once a month, and now I realize that's a good drive. I did it, 5 times a week, so it felt like nothing to me, but they were so generous because I think they knew that that's the kind of community we need to succeed. And so it was mixed. We had men and women in that group. It was great. But then one day I stumbled across this article, and it was called On Pandering by Claire Vay Watkins. And she wrote it in 2015. And I don't even know how I found it, but there was something that grabbed me. And I read the whole thing, and it's all about and like misogyny is a big word, so I like don't really, it's not that heavy, but it is like her experience of being not taken seriously as a woman writer, and her experience of having male mentors, and her favorite authors were all male, and she found herself writing in a style that she hoped would please her mentors. She found herself wanting to be Cormac McCarthy. And then she realized that's absolutely not who I am. And I shouldn't be writing to please someone else. I need to be writing authentically for me. And as someone who has like a great number of male friends and mentors, And I'm so lucky that they all treat women like equals and support us in our strengths. But I did realize that I always had my teachers in my head. I always wanted to make sure that if they saw my work, they would approve. And it was very important that I get that out of my studio. And that when I go in there, it's just me. And I'm painting these paintings not even for sale, just because they need to be painted. And I needed to figure out how to make that happen. So this article is really like impactful for me. It felt like the beginning of something. So I went to my friend who was like so much more of a confident feminist. And I said, hey, I'm kind of interested in maybe getting together and talking about some like feminist ideas. And I read this article, and what do you think? And she was like, yes, let's get together. I ended up texting all the women in my critique group and saying, would you please read this article? We're going to meet at Adrian's next week and just discuss it. I didn't think it was going to become anything. I just wanted to hear what they thought. And we realized that by sticking together, we would be able to kind of, in a gentle way, hold each other accountable. Like, oh, you know, you reacted that way when he said that. Like, what else could you have said? You know, in a way that like can move us forward as women and as female artists. And we're like, should we get together every month? And I was expecting everyone to be like, that's too much. Everyone was like, oh no, absolutely, yes. And so we ended up getting together. That was May 2024. And every month we meet and someone brings like an art thing to do, because we're all talented in really different ways. Half of us are printmakers, which is really interesting. And we all have our specialties and crafts. And so it's been really fun to learn from each other. And then in November of 2024, Adrian had the idea when one of the coven members had an extra roll of canvas that she didn't want. She was going to just give it to someone. And Adrian was like, what if we all work on this canvas? And the original idea was like, we'll just roll it out and all work on it at the same time. But we realized that if we split it up into 12, we could make better art pieces. And so we got together at Adrian's house. We built all those canvases together. And that was a great thing because a lot of people hadn't done that yet. And so we all learned a new skill. And then we each took a canvas home, painted on it, and an example of how we feel about femininity or ourselves as women in the world. Anything goes. There was no rules. We're very postmodern here. And then the goal was to pass the canvases amongst ourselves every month, which we needed a deadline because we couldn't stick to the schedule. We had a spreadsheet, but like we took some months where we didn't see any of the canvases. So when this show was proposed and on the calendar, and we were offered the features gallery as well, I thought, oh, it was Nancy's idea. She said, do you think that the Coven would want to put art in that gallery? And I'm like, oh my gosh, we can finish our collaborative project and put that in the gallery. So we did that, and we really did need a deadline. So we're going to try and make it a yearly thing somewhere to have a show and do a project, because it's really, really cool. I do want to talk briefly about the benefits of community, because this thing is crazy. All of us have grown in a really profound way. And we don't have overtly feminist conversations. We're just doing life together. We're telling each other the stories of, oh my gosh, this thing happened to me, or this boy said this thing. And then we discuss. And each of us have our own goals, artistically, professionally, and we're all working on our own things, but by being together, we learn from each other. We say, oh yeah, that's cool. Like I could apply for something like that. I could do this, I could do that. And we've all come a really far way. And you know, people bring it up all the time about how we deal with competition. And when you get a group of 12 ladies together, and our coven is actually larger than the 12, but these are the 12 that were crazy enough to commit to this thing. And so when we get together, like, how do you do that? Women can be really competitive. Women can be really mean. And we've made a very conscious decision that just like Nancy and the feminist artists, we could make history. There could be a Coven chapter in 50 years in the art history books. And we're in Fresno, like, let's reestablish that. And if we have a big goal, it's bigger than any of our little things, like someone saying something that like made you mad. We can deal with it because we have something bigger that we're working towards. And it's taught us a lot. We've had some really interesting conversations. And I'm so proud of us because I don't know if there's a lot of other opportunities for people to grow in that way. I mean, I don't work a regular job, so I don't interact with a lot of people. One of the Coven members last night was saying to me, she said, "Thank you for doing this because it's changed everything. I didn't have a circle of women to support me or like to go out to coffee with or to even to see regularly. And especially as moms, we can really self-isolate. And so it's been a really, really cool experience. I understand the value of it, and I want everyone in the world to experience it. So I don't know, I hope to see artists working together in that way. And also, like, it goes back to art history. Every great art movement has happened because of a group of people. There's no singular people. Even Jackson Pollock, like, all the women in his spheres were doing the same thing. Like, he had support. He wouldn't be popular without his wife fighting for him business-wise. You look at, like, even Cubism, we think Picasso and Braque. No, there was a whole group of people that were testing out these theories and making paintings in this style and discussing it and, you know, philosophizing about all these ideas. So we're only going to go anywhere if we go together. And so I think that's a good place to end. So yeah, thank you so much.